The clock on the register always glowed a sickly digital green, a constant reminder of the slow, painful march of time between midnight and dawn. The year was 2003, and this particular gas station was my domain. A lonely stretch of highway just outside a small, forgotten town in the Midwest. The store was a permanent mix of old coffee, stale donuts, and an aggressive pine-scented air freshener. A combination that seemed to cling to my uniform and follow me home. I was the overnight guy, the graveyard shift. It's a job that turns you into a silent observer of the world that only comes out when everyone else is asleep. You see things that stick with you, like the faint smell of motor oil or the lingering chill of a cold night. The first story, the one that still makes me check the fire extinguishers as a reflex, started with a man named David. I never knew his real name, but he was a regular presence. A ghost of a man who smelled of wood smoke and old raincoats. He'd come in every night, a creature of habit, and buy a cheap can of soup. I'd heat it up from the microwave without charging him. A quiet agreement between two people on the margins of the night. It was part of the routine. One night he shuffled in with a different look in his eyes. He wasn't hungry. He was angry. The usual quiet sadness was gone, replaced with a tense, desperate energy. He walked straight past the food aisle to the back, where the cans of motor oil and antifreeze were stacked. Before I could say a word, he grabbed a can of lighter fluid and a magazine from the rack. His movements unnervingly quick and decisive. My heart started to pound a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I knew. I just knew. "Hey, David," I said, my voice trying to be calm, trying to pull him back from the edge of whatever he was doing. "What are you doing?" He didn't answer. He just looked at me, his eyes wide and vacant, as if he were seeing something far beyond the fluorescent lights of the store. He doused the magazine in lighter fluid, and then with a shake of his head and a flick of a cheap Bic lighter, a small bright orange flame erupted. He tossed the burning paper onto the magazine rack, and I was like watching a bomb go off in slow motion. The fire spread like a spiderweb crawling up the cheap plastic racks. The smell of burning paper and melting plastic filled the air with a choking smoke. My hands flew to the phone dialing 911 while I grabbed the fire extinguisher from behind the counter. My voice was a frantic mess, but the operator understood. I turned to the fire, a growing hungry beast in the corner of the store. David had already vanished, disappearing into the cold night, as if he'd never even been there. I sprayed the fire extinguisher, a cloud of white powder covering everything in a thick chemical blanket. By the time the fire department arrived, I had it mostly under control, but the damage was done. The memory of that look in David's eyes, and the sound of the crackling fire, still visits me on sleepless nights. The next memory is of a man with a beard like a tangled bird's nest, and a bottle of Jack Daniels in a paper bag. It was around 3 a.m. when he stumbled in, smelling of booze and desperation. He slammed the bottle on the counter, demanding a pack of cigarettes. I told him I couldn't sell him cigarettes if he was drinking. It was the store policy, a rule I was forced to enforce. His face contorted into an ugly scowl. "You're calling me a liar?" he slurred, leaning over the counter. "No, sir," I said, trying to be non-confrontational as possible. My hands flat on the counter. "I just can't sell you these. It's the law." He leaned closer, his breath a foul mix of whiskey and stale smoke. "Look, pal, I need these. Don't be a pain." I held my ground. "I'm sorry, I can't." That's when he reached into his oversized coat and pulled out a beaten-up aluminum baseball bat. It wasn't a heavy wooden thing. It was a light and full of dents, but it looked just as menacing in the dim light of the store. He tapped it on the counter, a hollow metallic thud that echoed in the silence of the store. "You're not sorry," he said, his voice low and menacing. "You're a punk." The silence hung between us, heavy and thick. I remember thinking, this is it. All I had to defend myself was a pack of cigarettes and a fear-induced adrenaline rush. I swallowed hard and looked him in the eye. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." He stood there, bat in hand, for what felt like an eternity. Then with a sigh that seemed to deflate all the anger out of him, he lowered the bat. "Whatever," he muttered, stuffing the bat back into his jacket and stumbling out the door. The sound of his truck peeling out of the lot was like a gunshot. I just stood there, my knees shaking, the metallic thud of the bat still ringing in my ears. I didn't get another customer for hours, just the slow, empty silence. The third memory, and maybe the most unsettling, didn't involve a confrontation at all. It was just a feeling of being watched. It was around 4 a.m. on a night just as thick, heavy fog that seemed to swallow the world, outside the gas station's halo of light. I was restocking the soda cooler when I glanced out the window. A car, an old beat-up sedan, was parked in the far side of the lot, far away from the pumps. No one was getting gas. No one was in the store. I didn't think much of it at first. People sometimes park there just to make a phone call or to take a break. But as minutes ticked by, the car didn't move. I kept glancing up, my eyes drawn to the shadowy figure in the driver's seat. He was just sitting there, a dark silhouette against the foggy glass. The feeling of dread started to creep in my spine. He wasn't doing anything, he was just watching. I pretended to be busy, wiping down the counters that were already spotless, straightening up the chip racks, but my eyes kept darting to the back of the window. The car was still there. An hour passed by, then another. The fog had thinned a little, and I could make out his profile. He was just staring at the store, at the little island of light in the sea of darkness. I started to wonder if he was going to come in. What was he waiting for me to be alone? What the fuck was this guy waiting for? I kept my hand on the panic button under the counter, my thumb hovering over the cold metal. The silence in the store was now deafening. The sound of my own heartbeat was all I could hear. I was trapped. I couldn't leave, and he wouldn't. The sand began to rise, a pale, anemic light piercing through the fog. As the first rays of light touched the sky, the engine of the car hummed to life. He drove off, slowly, without backward glance. He hadn't bought anything. He hadn't said a word. He was just watching. The next guy to come in was a regular, a farmer named Jim, who always got his coffee before heading out to the fields. He asked me how my night was, and I just looked at him. And for a moment, I couldn't speak. I just shook my head and pointed to the coffee pot. He nodded, probably thinking I was just tired. He had no idea what it was like to be a ghost in the graveyard, watching the world, and being watched in return. The summer of 2015 in Salt Lake City was a relentless beast. The days were scorching, the kind of dry heat that makes the asphalt shimmer, and the nights weren't much better either. Even at 2 a.m, a ghost of the sun's fury lingered in the air. From the grimy windows of the gas station, I could watch the Wasatch Mountains, outlined against the star-dusted sky, a silent, majestic backdrop to the mundane parade of my life. My uniform, a stiff polo shirt with the company logo, felt like a second skin, perpetually damp with sweat. The overnight shift was a strange mix of profound boredom and sudden jarring activity. Most nights were a quiet procession of truckers, blurry-eyed travelers, and the occasional lost soul looking for directions. But at 2 a.m, the door was locked. My closing routine was the same every night. Flick the little sign from open to closed, turn the deadbolt, and retreat to the back office to count the day's earnings. This small act of locking the door was a moment of peace, a brief interval where the world outside couldn't touch me. Tonight the peace was shattered. As I counted out the 20s, a crisp rustle of the bills was the only sound in the office. I was humming a song under my breath, lost the monotone rhythm of counting, when the sound from the front of the door cut through the silence. It was faint rattle, a soft jingle of the front door handle. I paused, my hand hovering over the stack of bills. Probably just a late-night driver who hadn't seen the sign, I thought, shrugging it off. This happens all the time. I'd wait a moment and then get back to work. But the rattling didn't stop. It became more forceful, a frantic, insistent jiggling, as if the large dog was trying to get in. I leaned forward, my heart starting to slow, nervous thrum. Then came a new sound, a dull, heavy thud against the glass door, followed by another. My humming stopped. The quiet peaceful of the back office had vanished, replaced by a suffocating sense of dread. A low, guttural voice from the other side of the glass reached me. It was muffled but unmistakable, a man's voice, slurred and angry.
Open up. I see you in there. Open the damn door.
Panic bloomed in my chest like a dark, noxious flower. I dropped the bills back into the till, my hand shaking so badly that the coins in the drawer rattled together. He knew I was in here. He had seen me lock the door. The thumping on the glass grew louder, more violent, accompanied by the chilling sound of something scraping against the metal doorframe. He was trying to pry it open. The gas station was a fortress of flimsy glass and cheap locks. I felt suddenly terribly vulnerable. My mind raced. The back office had a second door, a fire escape, but it was always locked from the outside. There was no key. I was trapped. I fumbled for my phone, my fingers clumsy and slick with sweat. As I dialed 911, the voice on the other side of the door escalated.
I'm not leaving. I'll break it down, you hear me?
The glass groaned under the strain, and the sickening creak echoed through the store. I pictured the entire pane shattering, and the man stumbling in, his silhouette framed by a harsh fluorescent light. I flattened myself against the wall, and my breath became ragged. I told the operator my location. My voice was whispery tremor, and then I just listened. I listened to every sound of the struggle, the man's furious grunts, the frantic scraping and bumping. Every sound was a hammer blow against my sense of safety. What felt like an eternity was probably only 2 or 3 minutes. Then, as suddenly as it started, it stopped. The thudding ceased. The voice was gone. A moment of absolute, heart-stopping silence filled the store. I was convinced he had found a way in, and I held my breath, waiting for the sound of footsteps coming down the aisle. Instead, I heard the distant roar of a car engine starting, followed by the squeal of tires peeling out of the parking lot. He was gone. I stood there for a long time, my phone still clutched in my hand, and my body trembling uncontrollably. The routine I had performed countless times, locking up, counting money, was now irrevocably tainted. The gas station, once a boring but safe haven in the dread of the night, had become a cage. I finished my shift, and as the sun finally crested the mountains, painting the sky in a soft shade of orange and pink, I saw it through my new eyes. The sunrise was no longer just the end of my shift. It was a promise that the darkness and the things that lurked within was over for now. Hey friends, I hope you enjoyed today's video. It was a little different. Added some sound effects to the last story just to see what you guys think. If you guys made it this far and you enjoyed the videos and you like the sound effects, let me know if you'd like to see this again in a future video. I'm just trying something a little bit different. Obviously, I'd love if you can comment something down below. It helps the algorithm. It helps me tremendously. I've been away from this for a very long time. And subscribe, support the channel. I am not monetized anymore because I haven't made videos, and you have to keep making videos to stay monetized. So hopefully I can get back there. Not like I'm begging for the money, but it is nice to have a little bit of extra pocket change. And I try to keep my ads spaced out nice and evenly when I do put ads on the video. I don't know if YouTube puts their own video ads because I pay for YouTube Premium. I think it's worth it. I don't like watching ads, and I like having YouTube music, so it's worth it to me. Outside of that, that's about it. That's my rant. All right, I'll catch you guys in the next one. See ya.